going to be the greatest outing of our lives, until tragedy struck. One of our companions was swimming alone in the pond, while the rest of us were preparing lunch or lounging around, chatting. We got distracted amidst jokes and all. That friend was no longer in the water, nowhere to be seen. I alerted the others, and we immediately ran to the shore to shout his name. Desperate to know what had happened to him, we couldn't find him anywhere. One of the girls said not to panic, that maybe he had gone to pee somewhere else. But I didn't believe that. Minutes later, our friend's lifeless body surfaced in the middle of the pond. Face down, no one dared to enter and grab him. He was a good swimmer, so something must have happened to him while in the water. Perhaps an aquatic creature got tangled in something. Or who knows what. 3 of us swam to bring it to the shore. And then tried to revive it, but it was all in vain. We couldn't achieve anything. We cried while looking at his lifeless body. He was a kind person and didn't deserve to end like that. Amidst all that tragedy, time flew by quickly, and night fell. It was pitch dark, and it wouldn't be possible for us to cross the forest with our friend's body. To reach the vehicle, besides being very challenging, we might encounter some wild animal, so we had no choice but to spend the night by the lake. The atmosphere was gloomy. There were disagreements among us, blaming each other for not accompanying him, or if someone closer couldn't hear the screams, or my friend who regretted not coming along because she didn't want to get wet. We said so many things in the stress of the situation, but deep down, we knew it was just a tragic accident, in a terrible accident where nobody was at fault. Before going to sleep, we were all in complete silence, unsure of what to say. One of my friends, Lucia, was particularly affected, as they were just starting to get to know each other better, and very likely to start a relationship. She couldn't stop crying. And in the end, we didn't do much more than lay down and try to sleep. As soon as the first light of day came out, we lifted our friend's body and took it straight to the vehicle to leave. It was in the early hours of the morning, when the others were asleep, that I saw everyone resting, but I noticed that Luciano was in his camping tent. I got worried about his health as he was really affected, and feared he might do something. So, but I got up and walked a few meters. Suddenly, I heard noises from the back near the lake. I ran towards it, and as I got closer, I realized the sound was like someone splashing. I hurried even more to find Lucia, thinking she might be in danger. I didn't know what to expect. For what reason did he enter the lake? But it is most likely that he was drowning. Upon arriving, I saw the silhouette near the shore. Indeed, I could see that something bad was happening. Without hesitation, I jumped in to rescue her and not lose another friend. I heard her cries, but in the last meters before reaching her, her figure was no longer there. I began to search around if she was in another place, or if she had submerged, but I didn't see anything else. I felt completely bewildered by what I saw, but I decided to return to the shore, when suddenly I heard shouts from the trees. It was Lucia, who started screaming furiously, asking what I was doing, swimming at that hour, and for what reason. Questioning if I thought what had just happened was a game. I was speechless, seeing her. But I was certain that she was drowning. So I told her and said that I had jumped in to help her because I thought she was drowning. However, she told me that she had never approached the lake. She said she had gotten up to use the bathroom and take some time away to be alone and continue processing the situation. Loss of our comrade because I didn't understand what I meant with what I told him while walking towards the trees. It was then when we heard the weeping and cries of sorrow of a man from the depths of lake. It was the voice of our deceased comrade, and there we understood what was happening. We ran towards the others to tell them what happened, and they looked at us with skepticism, but because of how disturbed we were, they did nothing more than eventually. Not much time passed when there began to be a bit of light, and immediately we started the return, leaving some things behind to arrive more quickly. Besides having to carry our comrade, we bid him a dignified farewell with all his relatives and loved ones. Weeks later, with the same group that went on that tragic journey, we made the decision to return to the lake to place a cross and say a few words to our comrade, telling him that everything. And each year, we go to the lake to pay our respects to our friend. We have given our blessing and have faith that he is now resting in peace, as we never heard his cries by the lake again. This was my tale. Thank you, Glenn, for sharing it. Good evening, Glenn. My name is Mario, and I want to share this chilling tale with you. It was an experience I had with my wife in a forest in the United States. Honestly, I never imagined something like that would happen, especially on a day we had enjoyed so much. I ain't say for sure what caused it all, or what happened, but I can say that we made it out alive. Not unscathed, but alive. And that's what matters. It was my wife, Rebecca, and I who chose to travel to the United States for our anniversary. It was her idea to explore one of the country's national forests. I won't disclose which one, as I don't want to tarnish its reputation, because, despite everything, it's a good place to visit. Sometimes I feel like we made poor choices that led to what happened. And soon you will know why I say that. We were with a bunch of individuals who, just like us, were afraid of missing out. Then yes, she kept insisting that we get an understanding of which path or trail to recognize in order to have fewer chances of getting lost. She agreed to that. But it was evident how desperate she was. One of the tourists acted as a guide, telling us stories about the trees, some wooden bridges, and the entire place. But it was quite tedious. We were not so interested in the history, but rather in wandering through nature and exploring unfamiliar places for us. So it was me who ended up telling my wife that I agreed with her idea, and we parted ways. In the end, I enjoyed that rush of adrenaline. We couldn't even hear the voices of the group members anymore. We were completely separated. But we still knew where we were. We kept on walking around when suddenly we heard the creak. She said, "Even when you do, and there, among the foliage, very close by. We turned around and saw it was a woman, wearing a green shirt. Some kind of outfit. She claimed to be a forest guide, and was part of the staff, responsible for ensuring that those venturing in alone wouldn't get lost. Monica and I burst out laughing, because we thought she was one of the animals that lived there. But we greeted her kindly, as the guide offered to us a bit further into the forest. We agreed to accompany her. We were not bored at all. She really knew how to entertain, with interesting stories about the forest, although I was very disturbed when she focused on a rather peculiar one at the end. It didn't seem made up, as she insisted it had taken place right there, in that same forest. It was about a serial killer who hid bodies in a remote spot deep in the forest. Over the years, the location was discovered, filled with bones and trash he had left behind. Even worse, this criminal practiced cannibalism. By eating the bodies of his victims, we could have the certainty of whether what was told to us was true or not. But it entertained us greatly. It was thus that over time, we arrived at a small rundown cabin. It wasn't the first time we had seen one like that. Among the many forests of the United States, it looked normal from the outside. But after hearing the guide's story, all I could think was that maybe that was the place where the murders she talked to us about had occurred. I didn't feel very secure approaching, and I noticed that Monica felt the same because she wrapped her arm around mine and squeezed tightly. Both of us had intentions of turning back, and we made it known to the guide. Besides, we had plans for the night and couldn't return so late. That's when she said we had nothing to worry about, as those events had happened decades ago, and it was interesting to see the sight. So, after much thought and once again letting ourselves be carried away by adventure, we decided to go in. From the moment we took the first step in, we should say that we felt the atmosphere very dense, nothing like what we had felt while walking through that forest. The natural sounds seemed to fade away, causing us discomfort and making us feel very uneasy. The guide reassured us that there was no need to be afraid, and insisted on showing us every corner of the cabin. Suddenly, we heard terrible screams from outside, sounding like many people crying and yelling, as if they were being hurt. Monica and I, unaware of what was happening, decided to leave. However, the guide, almost commanding us, told us to stay put since we didn't know what was being heard outside. My wife had a premonition and, as if by sixth sense, knew that something was not right before the guide could come closer to protect us. Monica whispered to me to trust her and to run out of there. I didn't hesitate for a second, and we ran towards the door, with me following behind my wife, while the guide shouted for us not to leave and to wait a moment. But we trusted our instincts and escaped from there. In total, my wife caused me to completely ignore her when we went out. We saw absolutely nothing. There wasn't a single person around, and the screams suddenly stopped completely. All we could hear was the noise of nature. We turned around, puzzled by the situation, not knowing what was happening. We noticed that the guide stayed inside the cabin, not following us. But then, those same noises started coming from inside, along with loud bangs on the door. by someone or something with great anger. I don't recall a time when my heart raced as much as it did then. We immediately ran, but my wife was slow. I shouted at her to hurry up and run faster. I was truly desperate, feeling that our lives were in danger. Unfortunately, with nerves, Monica tripped over a stone and twisted her ankle. We ran, hoping that we were following the trail among the trees that would lead us to the right path. I wandered with the rest of the sightseers, and eventually we succeeded. As soon as they noticed us, they came to our aid and carried my spouse to extract her from the forest and transport her to the nearest control station. Sometime later, we arrived with the forest ranger, and I narrated everything to him. But he informed us that there was no one else working in that part of the forest besides him. He had never collaborated with any guide. We provided the description, but he simply had no knowledge of what we were referring to, leaving it as an unresolved mystery. We speculated that perhaps it was not a person, but something that materialized to lead us to that house full of negative energies, or maybe a follower of the criminal who committed those acts in the past. Who knows what their intentions were in taking us there? That cabin is infested with something wicked that we cannot defend ourselves against. And fortunately, we managed to exit before anything further occurred. When my wife was discharged, we promptly departed to another city. I do not wish to give the forest name because what happened to us was due to actions of us ourselves. Should have stayed with the rest. This is my message to all individuals who hike in nature. Never venture out to explore paths that are not marked on the map. It is clear that there is always a reason for that. Good night, community. Like and subscribe if you are enjoying it. We continue. This story happened decades ago in the Tongass Forest in Wonthusanatisana. 984. When I was a 14-year-old on an outing, I enjoyed with my family. I am not afraid to tell, as I feel compelled. Anyway, I hope that at least this serves to alert others. And as soon as they see any normal structure, and as soon as they see any normal structure in the middle of any forest. Dog. When I was little, my mother was the only one who opposed those places. She didn't like them at all. And she had a lot of reasons. As a child, she got lost in one of those forests, and it took more than 24 hours to find her. I can't imagine being in a situation like that, especially at the age of 10. On the other hand, she realized that I was no longer a child, and I was older, so she felt secure enough to say yes, and my father made plans to go for a whole weekend. I was an only child, but I didn't even consider inviting any of my friends. The truth is, I just wanted to go with my parents. I really enjoyed spending time alone with them. Those were the best moments that a person could experience. Being in the forest, wonderful. It was my first time in such a vast one. We had covered quite a distance while he told me stories of his camping days, the animals he encountered, and everything else. My mother just remained silent. She was a woman of few words, but she also enjoyed listening to him speak with such enthusiasm. I enjoyed hearing him more than he could imagine. That was when my mother got a rather strong headache, and my father had no choice but to return to the camp so she could rest. I told him I would stay there a little longer and then catch up with them. There were no objections to that. They just told me not to venture too far and because I could get lost. I had my headphones on and followed an easy path to remember my way back by the same path until I saw something black and dark